Welcome to 39-minute conversations. Please wait for your host to begin this meeting. Your meeting is now being recorded.
All right. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Hello.
I can see you. Can you see me?
I can see you. I can hear you. Perfect. All right. We are good. Cheers to you. Let's go ahead and do this thing. But the first thing I have to do is get through a quick ad read. I apologize. It's just the way that, this podcast works. So if you could just chill out for 1 second there, I appreciate it. This episode of 39-Minute Conversations is not officially presented by Yoga with Adrian. It's the new year, and those of us who fucked up the last year or two, like myself, are in a desperate race to fix everything about ourselves in one fell swoop that's definitely not destined for failure. And one of the good habits I'm trying to get back into is a daily yoga practice. But am I leaving my apartment, going out into the world, taking classes, meeting new people, forming in-person connections? Absolutely not. I will stick with the unhealthy parasocial relationship that I formed during the height of the pandemic with my YouTube yoga teacher. Thank you very much. And all this month, Yoga with Adrian is releasing a new video every day for free on her YouTube channel and on her app, Find What Feels Good. And on her app, there's a huge library of yoga videos, Pilates, mindful meditation, and more. Plenty of ways to start the new year off right and then feel bad about abandoning completely as the year wears on and we inevitably become the worst versions of ourselves once again. But for now, join me in pretending like these new healthy habits are forever with Yoga with Adrian. And then we pause real fast to show that the ad has ended. And then, hello, I'm Brian T. Arnold, and this is 39-Minute Conversations, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends and making new ones, but I've only got 39 minutes to do it because I will not be paying for Zoom Pro. Last month, the 2022 Blacklist was announced, the annual list of the best unproduced feature screenplays of the year, and for the month of January, it is my honor to use this podcast to feature writers from this year's Blacklist. And my guest today is the very talented writer of Colors of Authority, an intense drama about corruption in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, which is based on a true story. He is also an actor who's appeared in shows like Heart of Dixie, Castle, The Closer, and one of my personal favorite shows, Veronica Mars, Kevin Sheridan. Hello.
Hey, man.
Thank you for doing this, man. It's good to see you.
Thank you. You're very good at this.
Okay, that's all the time we have. That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
This is the very last episode. I've been waiting for a compliment. Thank you.
Is that your first compliment? I doubt it.
No, I've gotten them before, but that one just came right off the bat and felt so nice that I almost feel like ending the episode right now.
Well, if you want to,
No, I want to talk to you.
And also, you look so officious with that's a professional mic. Like that's the real deal. Like there's nothing around.
Yeah, I had a cheaper one, and then it went out on me during an episode. And I decided if I was going to buy a new one, I was going to go for the real thing. And it makes me feel professional.
Mm-hmm. No,
it
makes
feels fancy.
Me professional too.
Oh my God, thank you. If this only weren't just an audio medium and people could see just how professional I look. And
are they not seeing us? Are we not being filmed too? Or is it
I mean, the video is being recorded. There will be some social media clips, some YouTube clips, but not the full episode. Okay. So, but yeah,
so I can take my shirt off and get comfortable. And
yeah, go ahead. Take your shirt off, man. Chill out. It's good. All right, Kevin. A lot of the guests that I've had in this podcast so far, I knew in the pre-pandemic world, and I'm usually starting out by asking, what they've been up to since I last saw them before I became a total shut-in. But you and I, we've only been friends.
Are you a total shut-in? Are you really a total shut-in, or are you just saying that?
I am less of a shut-in than I used to be, but more of a shut-in than probably most people at this point. I don't go out a ton. I am not, I'm not really eating in restaurants. I'll pick something up. I'll hang out with people, but if it's going to be a large crowd and indoors, I'm like, yeah, it won't. I still am not at that point.
That for me isn't pandemic related. That's just me being a total introvert. Like usually when I finish working by the end of the day, I'm just fucking exhausted.
Sure.
Like, I don't have energy to be social. So I guess I could kind of hang my hat on, like, I can be like, oh, pandemic, I don't want to, but the truth is, like, I'm just tired and I just want to stare at the wall, and everything is hard and everything is hard. And,
Yeah. I'm not sure where I land on the introvert to extrovert scale, because I did used to do, like, my evenings used to be a lot of like comedy performing and going out to like a bar after.
I don't think that's indicative of someone who's an introvert. I mean, I think I know, I've met a lot of performers who I would classify as total introverts, and they're big stars, they're a few big stars, but like, even for me when I was acting, like, I was still a total introvert. And now I am, and it's just, I don't know. It's like usually when the weekend comes along, I'm exhausted. I don't want to go out. I don't want to do anything. Just want to kind of like recuperate a little bit, and that's what I do.
That makes sense. So because we are new friends,
you off, by the way. I cut
you
you
did.
off.
You did.
How you had
you
pandemic.
Absolutely cut me off.
I hijacked your radio show.
It's fine, man. I love it. I love the conversation goes where it goes, but at the same time, I'm gonna awkwardly work my way back to my original point. We only became friends in the last couple of years. I didn't know you, like maybe just last year.
And I reached out to you.
You did. You reached out to me.
I was like, I said I read your script and I loved it, and I was like, I have to reach out to this guy. I hope he responds. Otherwise, I'm gonna feel like I got shunned on. And you did respond, and we had a little kind of Zoom date, and it was really cute. And
yeah, it was nice. It was really nice.
I just flowered you with compliments the whole time, and you were like, "Who are you?" I've never read your stuff.
I hadn't at that point. I have now, which we will get into. But the question that I want to ask based on this is, since we have only known each other in pandemic and kind of relatively post-pandemic times, how is this Kevin, the Kevin that I know, how is he different than the Kevin I would have met maybe, 2018, 2019? How have you changed? How have you grown? Have you changed in the last 3 years?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, my life kind of totally blew up right when the pandemic started. I was, is this going to turn into a sob story about the guy?
It's up to you, man.
I was in a really long relationship for a while, and then got ended amicably, and I kind of was, for a year, I was living out of a suitcase, kind of floating around. And I lived like, I would say 7 or 8 different places in the span of a year. It was not with cat, by the way. I have a cat.
And this was during the pandemic. This was like 2020.
Pandemic, yeah. And I lived up north. I lived on, friends' guest rooms. I lived in my cousin's kind of garage studio thing, and I had my cat with me. And then, fortunately, I found a place to settle down a year ago. But it was pretty wild. I mean, it made me. Everything was definitely on the table at that point in time. I didn't know where the business was going. I didn't know where my life was going. Colors was actually a script that was supposed to go out in 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that everything kind of got put on hold because the producers were working on another project that they were filming at the start of the pandemic. And so all their attention was kind of going into that at the time. And a couple other projects that were about, so they were figuring out how to do it, how do we make a movie in the pandemic? So everything was kind of put on hold for me, and I didn't quite know what was in store. And then I just stuck with it, and I kept on writing and during all this, and as far as me being a different person, I mean, I hope that I'm a more compassionate person, more patient, maybe a better writer. Probably not. I don't know.
Well, I have no way of knowing, because this script was supposed to go out in 2020, and it's the only thing I've read of yours. I don't know what we've done in the last 2.5 years. I don't know if you've gotten any better.
I don't know either. We'll find out. I'll let you be the judge. I'll send you everything.
Yeah, absolutely. We should I would love that.
You can write an official tweet saying, "Am I Kevin Sheridan is better or
not?" Yeah, I'll let the world know. Yeah. I do want to talk more about the script and writing and all of that, but there are, and your acting career too. I want to get into all of that, but I think there's something more important that we have to talk about first that I saw on your IMDb page, on your trivia. According to your IMDb, you competed in the Junior Olympics for volleyball, winning gold in 96, silver in 95 and 97, bronze in 2000. Is this accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
Why is that not what the information that you lead with when you introduce yourself to people? If I won gold medals in anything, I would wear them everywhere.
I was actually going to wear the medals for the interview and just start off with that. No, I was decent. I was good until everyone got taller. And then once everyone got taller, or at least to say that all the tall people got their coordination, then it was done.
Okay.
I had kind of a good little career until about 15, 16.
Okay, well, that's still, so you peaked early.
I peaked early in a lot of ways. And hopefully I'm coming back right now.
Was this indoor volleyball? Was this beach volleyball?
Both. So I played both. Like I started playing young as a kid, and it was, my favorite thing to do. And I remember like when we were 14, we went down to this tournament and we played against Puerto Rico and we beat them in the finals, and that was a big deal. And I thought I always thought that I was going to play in college or something like that. But when everyone else who was 6'7", 6'8", kind of got all the skills that I had already, it was done. So I had to transition.
Well, you seem to have transitioned pretty well. You moved on from that into obviously now a writer, but before you were writing, you were acting, and you started pretty young.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first started pursuing acting?
So I did the first job when I was in 8th grade, and that was a pilot. And then it didn't go. It was really an amazing experience. Like it was the producers who did my so-called life. It was like kind of one of those magical things that like you don't get that often. And I went to high school. I went to an all-boys Catholic school, and I remember.
Oh, you Catholic?
I am.
Or raised that way? Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
All right, right.
I wasn't confirmed.
Oh, I was confirmed. So in your face.
Yeah, in my face. I was playing freshman football. My mom picked me up she came by afterwards. She's like, "Do you want to go on an audition?" And up until then, it was kind of like it was something I did on the side, kind of best way to describe it. I mean, I lived in LA, and it was something I enjoyed. Like I was definitely a kid who loved movies and loved like different movies. Like I was the kid in 3rd grade watching My Left Foot. Something that like I shouldn't be watching.
Sure.
And then so I had an audition in my freshman year of high school, and that turned out to be a show that I did for like a year and a half with Dan Aykroyd. It was a sitcom, and that was in New York.
Oh wow.
And then once that finished, I stopped for a while and then got back into it in college, just to make some money, and I kept on doing it. Well, about 5 years ago when I stopped. I was done. I retired.
Okay, we're gonna get into that, but what I think I want to talk about one of your roles before we get into the stopping of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure I saw you in a bunch of things, but the credit that stands out to me just because I'm a big fan of it is Veronica Mars.
Yeah.
And you did a few episodes of that. They brought you back for the movie. Did you have any way of knowing at the time, or did you feel it that oh yeah, we're making something that even though right now maybe it was underseen in its time, but did you have any idea that what kind of imprint it would leave, and that role would recur and have that kind of impact?
No, I knew that Kristen Bell was a star. And I knew not only was she incredibly gifted, but she was an amazing human being too. So I just knew that things were going to work out for her. But honestly, I was in college at the time, so I kind of couldn't really pay attention. I wasn't really, didn't really know. I had other focuses, is what I'm trying to say. I had to get ready for finals and this and that. So I wasn't really going, oh wow, this show is going to be a huge cult phenomenon. And I knew the writing was incredibly good. I was smart enough to recognize that. I knew all the people on the show were extremely talented. But I didn't think that it would have the life that it did afterwards. No.
Is it weird for you to talk about acting now? Because it just it's something you said you left behind. Is it uncomfortable, or is this part of your life that you don't mind talking about?
I was always really shy. Whenever the few times I would ever get recognized, I would freeze. I would literally freeze. I wouldn't know how to respond. It would make me feel really, really uncomfortable. Even when I was a kid. So yeah, I was never that person that was like, you know, I can't wait to get in front of the camera. Like, I love the spotlight. Like, I want to do an interview. I was always very kind of reticent to participate.
Are you nervous now doing this podcast in front of the millions and millions of listeners?
I just get lost in your eyes, and I feel.
This is the flirtiest interview so far.
Is it?
Which, yeah.
No,
I don't
I'm
hate
not
it.
nervous at all. I'm always a little nervous, but at the moment, I'm okay.
Okay, good. I'm trying to make you as comfortable as I can. So obviously, like, yeah, it sounds like you were pretty uncomfortable with just the whole being in front of the camera thing. So it makes sense that you decided to transition to something else and you transitioned to writing. When did you decide that? And like, yeah, what was that process like, stepping away from acting? And
so I had written a feature in college that actually we ended up making.
Oh.
It was an incredible experience. And I sold a pilot right after that that I co-wrote. And, you know, from my vantage point, the business was very easy. I was like, what's everything planning about? Just make a movie, just sell a pilot. Like, you're gonna be okay, you know?
I'm getting the vibe that, like, yeah, it is kind of funny. Like, it's not to, like, I'm sure you've had struggles and things are difficult. They are for everybody, but it's just funny that you're like, oh yeah, I needed extra money. So just like, you know, fuck it, I'll act a little bit more. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
don't get that impression at all. It's always a grind. I mean,
sure.
Like, it can sound like it's easy, but it's everything has been hard. Like, nothing is, I mean, I can't tell you how many auditions I've gone on that I've bombed. I mean, like, slogging, or, you know, like, I'm far from you know, instant success story. Not that I have any sort of success right now. No.
Oh, come on. You've been on a bunch of stuff. You're on the blacklist right now. We can start talking success.
Yeah.
We can start saying that.
Okay.
So were those like the first things that you wrote that were getting attention? Were you like, you know, straight out the gate, like when did reps come along? When did you start getting attention for these things?
Yeah, so I wrote a feature, and it was my first feature, and I actually I gave it to a director who's super talented, who's crushing it in life. His name is Peter Page. He was on Queer as Folk. He created the Fosters, and he loved it, and so we put that together and made it. And then from that, I got an agent at the time, and, you know, I sold my first pilot. But then, you know, after that, I worked on a couple of things that didn't sell, and writing kind of took a backseat to acting. It wasn't until about, I would say, 5-6 years ago, where I was like, you know what, like, I kind of had one of those moments where I was weighing where my life was going to go and where I could bleed for stuff that was most meaningful for me, because none of it's easy. Like, every time I sit down and write, like, it's not easy. Like,
agreed. Sure.
The hardest fucking thing I've ever done, you know. And same with acting. Acting was always very hard for me, and I can't say that I loved it. I wasn't getting the juice back in a way, you know, that some people do. And at least with writing, I could tell stories that I was personally attached to. So that's what made the shift. I went, okay, well, I here's two things I can bleed for and kind of dedicate my life to. At least with writing, I can bleed for something that you know, has deep, deep meaning for me. With acting, you rarely get that chance. You know, like, there was projects that I got to act on that were meaningful and impactful, but there were a lot that weren't. You know,
sure.
And with writing, I can go, okay, yes, I'm doing this. I will wake up every day and force myself to sit down and write and bleed on the keys for this. And so that was the shift for me.
That totally makes sense. So let's start talking into, you've, you know, at this point, you've written a few things, some have gone, some haven't. You now, but then you write Colors of Authority, 2020-ish, and it starts going out, it gets optioned, it's all very exciting. But
no. So what happened? I'll even dial you back before that.
Yeah, dial me back.
This is kind of a funny story. So our mutual manager, John Zalzerny, has a meeting.
Shout out,
who actually just called me during this, and I had to send him the voicemail. Fuck that guy. He sent he has a meeting, gets canceled, so he pulls over to a taco truck to get lunch.
Mm-hmm.
A producer, Trevor White, has a meeting, gets canceled. He pulls over at the same taco truck. They know each other. They start chatting. John's walking away and Trevor goes, hey, by the way, I got this project. I need a writer who's good at kind of getting into worlds. Do you have anyone like that? And he said, Brian Arnold. And no,
no, John doesn't pitch me for anything.
No. He says, yeah, I got a writer, Kevin. So I met with Trevor. Trevor pitched me the idea that for colors and that happened from there. So basically it was 2 failed meetings in a taco truck that led me to get this project. And since then, even weirder, since then, I'm on my 3rd or 4th project with Star Thrower. So it's kind of a huge turn in my life.
It's nice when you find that company or a couple of companies or whatever that you kind of connect with in that way, and like we get each other. And like, I've felt I haven't had many things like, I have a couple things in various stages of development, but like it's you hear the horror stories from writers who are like, oh yeah, I never, I sold it and then I never was heard from again or never talked to them again, and those kind of things. And once in a while you kind of hit the jackpot of like, oh no, I like these people and they like me and we're going to keep doing this thing. And it feels really nice.
Yeah. The biggest revelation for me was, I remember I co-wrote something with a very, very talented Ian Shore, and I was working on it with John and Ian, and John and Ian have this incredible rapport. I mean, it's almost like they're working from the same brain. I remember watching them like work through a problem together and going, oh my God, I want that with someone. Like that. Not only are they both brilliant and smart, but they do something and they speak the same creative language.
Right.
And I think that's like a really it's not talked about a lot. Like, I think we all have our own creative languages, or we all approach stories from a different place. And John and Ian, they approach stories from a very similar place. And when I met up with Trevor and we started working together, like immediately I was like, oh my God, I found my John.
Yeah.
Like, not only does Trevor, I mean, he's so smart. Trevor White, who's one of the producers, colors, he's so smart and he's such a hard worker, but we also speak the same creative language. So like he would say something like, he'd start off with something and I would go, oh, but this and that, and it was cool, and there's energy there because you're kind of working on this really tight electrical current. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I totally do. It's such a I would say, like, my old roommate is also a writer, and he and I would work out stuff together in that same way, I feel like. And because he and I both write similar genres, similar sensibilities, I think. And it's nice. It's rare to find that, because a lot of times when you're talking about a script, it sounds like you're trying to describe a dream to somebody and nobody wants to hear that shit. And once in a while, there's somebody who's like, dude, same fucking dream. And it's cool.
Yeah, because they're coming from it at the same place, and it's a really rare, precious thing to find. So I think if anyone takes anything from this podcast, it's that
they won't.
I'll just stop.
But if they do,
if they do, it's to kind of look for the people who are speaking the same creative language, who. Because those are the people that I think you want to work with, because they're going for the same goals.
Absolutely. So this script that you worked on, that you found with Star Thrower, ends up on the blacklist. On the morning of the blacklist announcements, it's an interesting journey to get to this point, because it had been out there for a little bit. It was already optioned. How, like, did you expect to end up on the blacklist, or was that a surprise to you?
It was a surprise. It was genuinely, I thought I had a chance, because I had been taking some meetings with people who had read it. They spoke very highly, but I thought I would, not really.
Yeah.
Because it didn't really go out wide.
Right.
It wasn't like, sent to a bunch of producers and then everyone's reading it. Like, there's already producers attached.
Right. That's why I'm curious about it, because it sounds like they just used that as a sample, I guess, just to, like, for meetings and stuff, and then people remembered it and loved it, which has got to be great. That's a great feeling to, you must have a high batting average on this script.
Yeah, I mean, but to be honest, like, so here's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Like, it shouldn't be just my name on the script. You know, everyone, like, there's this misconception that the writer goes off and does a brilliant script and, you know, there's a few notes in that, and then they deserve all the credit. Like, that's such bullshit.
Mhm.
Like, I got Trevor White put so much of his own brilliance into this thing. Tim White, you know, Alan Mandelbaum, Kay Foster, you know, Ian Shore gave me amazing notes. Peter Gamble gave me amazing notes. Like, you know, if anything, it should be, you know, Kevin Sheridan and Trevor White and Andrew Heckler,
Sure.
you know, because Andrew Heckler came in and he gave some notes that were so brilliant. So it's like, you know, if I was left to my own devices, this would be a good script, you know, but it wouldn't be as good as it is. So it's like also surrounding yourself with people who help foster something like this is so important, because you ain't doing it on your own. You know, you really are. At least I'm not that talented, but I got lucky. You know, I got lucky to work with Trevor. I got lucky to work with Andrew Heckler. You know, and all those guys. They just elevated it in ways that, like, I couldn't have, you know, by myself.
I think that's important. It's a good thing to talk about, is like having that kind of trustworthy either collaborators or community of some kind.
Yes.
Obviously, like John and I also have Kate as one of my managers as well at Bellevue, and then my agents at APA. Like I trust them implicitly, but I also, before I even get to them, I have the writers group that I, like, you know, always check in with. And like, yeah, the idea of just like I can form this completely on my own, it is unfair. It is like a little bit of, you know, none of my scripts would be as good without my writers group, and then without my reps, and then without the producers who eventually look at it and all of
And
that.
it's hugely important, and it's hard to create. Like, you kind of create this like nucleus of people around you who will make you better. And I remember when I first met with John, before I signed with him, I was like, this guy's incredibly brilliant, and more so in ways that I am really stupid.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
he was really, I knew that he was really, really smart in ways that I was very deficient. And that's what was something that was so, you know, to me, like, I was like, oh, I gotta go with this guy. You
I
know,
think that's smart. Yeah, because I had the same thoughts, and I think I'm still in the mode of you know, because John is very much. I want to ask you about this with your writing process, because John is very heavy on. He wants you to outline. He wants to, you know, read every outline. Wants to work the whole thing with you, and I support that. I think that's great. I've never been a big outliner, and so the adjustment has been a little tough for me. Have you always been an outliner? Were you able to, or did you adjust to John's process, or what was that like for you?
I always outline, but it's funny, like, I just turned in an outline a month and a half ago that was probably 60 pages long. Yeah. And for me, you know, I spend a lot of time. So if you look at a script like a chair, right?
I do.
Yeah, all the time. Right?
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I sit, I can't afford chairs. I just sit on a bunch of scripts.
A piece of furniture, right? With
Yeah.
legs and a base and a back.
Yeah.
You know, that to me, like, is my outline. And I want to make sure that outline is so solid before I really go in and do and take my chisel and my little carving knife and really craft something beautiful. Because if, say, that leg in the back is not working, I just wasted so much fucking blood trying to make this leg so beautiful. I'd rather just spend all that time crafting before I go, doing my outline before I start really bleeding for it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I do want to say, it doesn't sound like you're very good at making furniture if you're bleeding all the time. Like, maybe be a little bit more careful when you're with the chisel.
They call this episode "There Will Be Blood." No, it's just it saves me a lot of time in the long run, I think. You know, so for me, it's like it's much easier for me to cut, move around, make changes in outline form than it is for me to make changes in script form, because I'm like, fuck, God, that ending to that scene I spent so much time on. I crafted the perfect kind of cut of whatever exit that is so beautifully melded, and now I got to let that go, you know?
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to make those bigger changes in outline form as opposed to in script.
That makes sense. I wish we would talk more about that, but I want to get to some other stuff here. So this Colors of Authority, based on a true story. How much research was involved? did you, did Star Thrower have to get the life rights, or because it was, public knowledge in the news, were you just free to write it?
So Star Thrower already had the life rights, and when I got the job, I met up with James and immediately handed me this hard drive with like thousands of pages of legal
Dang.
documents,
Yeah.
FBI document. I mean, every kind of document under the sun. And I went, oh shit, what did I get myself into? And I probably spent about 4 months just researching everything and trying to figure it out, because I didn't know how to tell the story. I mean, I had an idea, but like, in truth, between you and me, like, I kind of was like, I'm gonna try. I don't know how to do it, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna try really hard. And it took a while for us to figure it out, but we did it. I had faith. I had faith in Trevor, and I had faith in James. Was such an amazing resource. James Sexton is the guy who's the story is based off of. Every time I called, he answered. Anytime I had a question, he was there. So like, again, he's another person that, like, if I didn't have James Sexton, this script wouldn't be on the blacklist. It just it wouldn't, and I did ride-alongs. I had been through a prison. I met tons of deputies and sheriffs in the interview process. I just tried to really sink myself into that world, because to me, it's like, Mark Bowl does this really well. He did this so well in Zero Dark 30, where it's like, the story is just elevated in a certain way when there's like a level of authenticity to it that's like so tangible and real. And that's what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to kind of like do what Mark Bowl did with Zero Dark 30.
You definitely did. I mentioned this in text to you, but I wanted to get into it more here. Like, when I read the script, I had a feeling that I rarely get. First of all, obviously it's a great script. But I had that feeling of I don't know if I could do this. You know what I mean? Like, of just like, I know what I like to
I have
write.
that feeling before I try to write anything. It's like, absolutely, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna say a prayer, and then if it works out, if I fail, I'll find another career. There's always massive amounts of fear, and I don't know if I can do this.
I get that, but like, at the same time, like, it's just because like we work in completely different genres, or at least for this script in particular. And so it was just that, like, it's so real, it's raw, it's emotional, it's the balancing act you pull off with it is very impressive. And it just, like, it had me doubting myself a little bit of like, am I ever going to get to the point of this kind of script? So it's very impressive and very well done. You deserve to be on the blacklist. I look forward to it getting made. It's, big congrats to you.
Oh, that's very kind. And yes, you could write something like this. Having read the word.
Oh, well, thank you. Is this tone, this kind of grounded thriller drama, would you say that's your preferred genre to work in? Or is this like, do you bounce around?
Like, even when I met with John and I met with Trevor, like, I always kind of said that I want to write films like The King's Speech and The Imitation Game and American Beauty. And with that said, like, I have a pilot that's a single camera comedy, and like, it's kind of whatever I can do, and that I feel like I can put my heart and soul into it, I'll do it, whether that's a comedy or a musical or whatever. But as a kind of like, overall, this is the type of writer I am. Probably, to various degrees, different shades, I think, but if I think subconsciously we all try to write the movies that really affected us.
Sure.
So like, recreate that for other people. So, Shawshank deeply moved me. So do I want to write a Shawshank? Of course I do. Network, being there, all those films were like films that, like, when I saw them, I was vibrating afterwards with like energy, like, oh my God, like, it was the best feeling in the world. Like, I want to make a movie like Being There. I want to make a movie like Network. I want to make a movie like Michael Clayton or The Insider.
You're just naming movies that I love. We need to hang out more.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
I do.
Consciously, like, we're fucking probably ripping from them too. Like,
oh, absolutely we are.
Totally stealing shit and putting it in there, and like, we don't even know we're doing it because we just love those movies, like, kind of got into our DNA.
Yeah, what's that quote? Good artists borrow, great artists steal. Like, it's just yeah.
And like, you could see that with, oh God, I don't know, never mind. I was going to cite some movie recently that I was like, oh my God, they took this and that and that and this, and isn't it great?
I mean, I think we're all products of the things that we love. Like whenever I read, whenever a writer talks about, like an upcoming writer is like, how do I know somebody's not going to steal my thing? I'm like, you stole. Everybody steals. Like who, like, you got to get over that. And like there's no original ideas anymore. If there ever were, it's just a matter of how you write it and how you make it work.
Yeah.
Okay. We only have about 3.5 minutes before Zoom cuts us off. So I want to give you this moment to...
Did you write today? Did you write already today?
I'm going to give you this moment. So I wrote these questions today.
Should we
okay.
call Juan Dalzieri? Should I call him back on the podcast and just...
I do want to ask him to be on the pod soon, but I'm scared of, him like confronting me about how much or how little I'm writing in day to day. So with about 3 minutes left, do you have anything that you want to plug and or let people know where to follow you?
Oh my God. No, I got nothing to plug. I want to plug your podcast.
Great. People listening to 39-minute conversations, please listen to 39-minute conversations.
Yeah, and tell your friends. That's what I want to plug.
But you are on social media and places, right? Can people follow you on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm not that active on Instagram, but you can find me there somehow. I don't know my handle names.
Perfect. I'll put them in the description. I'll figure them out.
Here's an interesting thing. So do you want to know how I signed with John?
Sure.
So I was looking for, I was getting back into writing and I was looking for management, and a friend of mine was shitting on the Blacklist as like a hosting site. You said kind of a scam, yada, yada, yada. And they give you a review and it's all,
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did it because I needed notes and I didn't have many writers friends. Got good notes, and I didn't know that they rate the scripts and they send it out to managers and producers and stuff like that.
Sure. What a scam.
Yeah. I started getting calls. I was like, I got one of the calls from John. And the reason that he clicked on my script was because I had no bio, I had no log line. And he's like, who's this fucking asshole to not include a log line, a bio, anything? Like it was just the name of the script, my name, and that, like, no contact info. I didn't put any because I didn't think that people contacted you. So I had no...
Sure.
But he was more intrigued by my lack of disrespect, the process, than probably by the actual title of the script, which is all he had to work on.
Oh, that's so funny, man. Okay, about a minute left, so I do want to get to know you on a deeper level. So in this minute that we have,
what happens when we die? Are we gonna get existential? Is that
sometimes we do. But the first thing that I want to ask, again, we've talked a little bit about this, but when I was perusing your IMDb, I saw that someone put you on this public list. You can add actors and stuff to lists, and the list was called People Who Should Act Again. And so, yep, you're on a list called People Who Should Act Again. So I asked for that person, what would it take to get you in front of a camera again?
I don't know, man. I'm so far removed from it. I was actually... So Trevor, who we were having a meeting, and he was doing King Richard at the time. That was a project that was during the pandemic. He asked me if I wanted to act in it. I'll never forget this moment. He asked me, he's like, hey, do you want to? And I was like, here's a movie with Will Smith. And I read the script and it was fucking brilliant. And I said no, because I could feel the sweat beating down my back. And
wow.
It was at that moment that I knew I was done.
Wow.
I knew I was done.
So you said it. What happens after we die?
Your meeting has ended. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to 39-Minute Conversations, hosted and produced by Brian T. Arnold. Music by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and tune in for new episodes, and don't forget to rate and review. If you didn't like what you heard, please don't do any of that. That's okay too. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe and be well.